Welcome to Real Love, Real Stories TV and podcasts. This is Kanu and I'm the host. Thank you so much for tuning in for yet another exciting episode. And let's dive right in. Thank you both for being on Real Love, Real Stories. So why don't we start by some introductions?
Great. I'm Mai Ling Chan. I'm a speech language pathologist and I live in Phoenix, Arizona with my husband, Cameron Svensson.
And that is me. I'm Cameron Svensson. I'm a social worker, but I'm also a co-founder of a hospice company, Faith Hospice, and Palliative Care Alliance here in Phoenix.
Awesome. Thanks, guys, for being on Real Love, Real Stories. Celebrating year 2. Yeah, so why don't we start by you guys talking about how your love journey, how did it begin?
I worked for a hospital and I was a social worker, just kind of going through the throes of what social workers do inside a hospital for discharge planning and working with families. Uh-huh. And there was a day back in 2005 where I was introduced to her. It was late 2005, and it's just one of those moments. And I know that she and I we fight about this a lot. Fun fight. What we remember, what we don't remember. But I do remember a lot of those first couple of months when she'd be on the same unit or coming down a hallway or whatever. But that's where we met.
Okay, cool. So, Mai Ling, were you working there? What was your reason to be at the hospital?
Yeah, I was doing my clinical rotations at that time. So my story is love at first sight. I literally met him and another related service provider. And when my colleague said his name, I looked over at him and literally just locked in. And I went, oh. And I will remember that moment forever. So when he says fun fight, I'm like, that's the moment we met, and I know it because it was like literally Cupid's arrow. I can't even explain it. And it was just something that stuck with me. And I don't even know if he looked his best that day. All I know is I looked at him and literally like everything just stopped for a moment and I went, oh,
Wow.
Yes.
Oh, I love that. So how soon after that or how long after that did you guys, decide?
How long did it take?
Yeah.
While I didn't have the love at first sight moment, it wasn't long after that. And I always say that I put her on a pedestal the way that I felt about her for some reason. And it was just brief encounters in the hospital. It wasn't long dialogue or anything. It was just brief moments, conversations, seeing her from afar, and I don't even, Mai Ling, I don't even know how long it was for sure that you were at the hospital and we were there together. But there were, I remember the one time I invited her to coffee and we were able to actually talk, even if we shouldn't have been talking. Yes. Oh, inside the hospital. Yes, that's right. Right.
Yeah. No, everything was like 1940s, discussion. There was nothing amorous about anything either. I would even say that most of our conversations were very professional dialogue. We had a shared patient and you can hear his voice. He kind of has that, I always call him like this yummy radio voice. So I remember one time I was charting and that was in the day where you had to do everything by hand. Uh-huh. And I heard someone talking and advocating for a patient, but it was like, it was his son. He was saying things like, whoever put him on NPO status, which means nothing by mouth, that they really have no consideration for quality of life and, all of these things. And I'm like starting to sweat because I'm realizing that that's me and I'm a student at this point. And so I'm putting everybody on don't eat anything orally because I don't want to kill anyone. So I'm like super cautious, which is not what you're supposed to do. But, of course, I'm just being very cautious. And I hear him saying this and I just want to fade away to nothing and nobody will notice that it was me. And I had to know who this person was because here I am thinking that it's somebody's family. And I turned around and looked at him and I'm like, oh, it's him. And I knew that I was going to have to talk to him at some point, but I just closed the book and walked away.
Well, if you can't tell, May has a way with words, with conversation, there's an engagement that's instantaneous. And I do recall a time where I had asked her to join our group at lunch, and I just wanted to talk more with her. I wanted to engage deeper with her with conversation, because there's just a joyful, playful nature to the way that she converses, even if it's serious, even if it's like she said, like an end of life discussion or a serious medical discussion. There was a way that she connected with me then. And I said, hey, let's go, come join us for lunch. She almost did.
That's awesome. You know what? When I first met Mai Ling was at a podcast get together, and I remember hearing her speaking, and almost like not to say that you were like authoritative or anything, but you were almost like delegating. I don't remember what it was, like who wants to take charge of that, but in a very like professional way. And I sat back and I was like, I want to connect with her after, we get done. And then what was so beautiful about that is that she walked towards me. I was like, yes.
Yeah. It was kind of love at first sight with Kenu also. I was like, oh yes, right after this, you're mine. I had my list of people.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so you guys go to coffee. I hope the coffee was good, because usually hospital coffee is like awful.
Oh, this is such a good discussion. So again, we fun fight over this. So we're standing and talking in the middle of the hallway, and there's, this coffee place in the hospital, and people are walking by us, and I am just staring at him. He's talking. I have no idea what he's saying, because I'm just so enamored with him, right? I'm like, oh my God, he wanted to have coffee with me. I'm like fifth grade, And there was an older woman walking by, and she looked over, and I had this like pang of guilt. I was like, I'm just having coffee.
Well, the best part is that that was her last day, or one of her last days, right, as an intern at this hospital, which was funny because we had waited that long, and it was finally like she came up to me saying, I'll have that coffee now, or let's go down and get coffee. And at the end, we shake hands, and she hands me her card. And I thought, what intern has their business card made up already? And all it said was Mai Ling Chen. It was like this, a way to reach out afterwards, just in case.
It was a kind of print out, and they're perforated, and you rip them off,
Yeah, I love those.
But only you would do that,
Well, I needed a job.
I'm sure, yeah.
That's so cute. I love it.
I choose to use that card that she gave me, and I reached out. And wasn't it that way? Didn't I call you first?
13 years later, I think it's getting really fuzzy. I think. Yeah.
I want to say I reached out to you, and then I don't know. I'm not even sure how, but we started to talk on the phone, and there was a long period of time. It was dialogue by phone. Yeah. And there's only so much you can do, because, you're at work and everything. So there's not a lot of conversation that can go on, but the conversations were such that they were still fun.
Yeah. So were you falling in love with her? Because for her, it was love at first sight.
Well, I don't think I would allow myself at that point to fall in love. I think it's, especially with the track history I have a very different background than Mai Ling does. I have, since 8th grade, girlfriend after girlfriend after girlfriend that just never worked out, and in and out of so-called love, before finally getting married to my first wife, when I was 32. So at this point in time, I just couldn't say, oh, I definitely love that girl. It's just, there was no way to do that, because my entire history was saying that same thing. So for this to be another period of love, it would have just been temporary.
Right.
So it was a pretty decent amount of time before I let myself say, oh, this is more than anything I've ever experienced in my life.
Okay. Yeah, that's when you've been in relationships where it didn't quite work out, sometimes you're very cautious, and that always happens to the right one that you're cautious with.
The very, very difference in how we came to each other is really important. And this is why I said we would be great for your podcast. I married my high school sweetheart. So I met my high school sweetheart when I was 15. and he's a great kid. He's a great dad to the boys, and he's just a solid personality, you know, and married him and had our children, and that was it. No, I've never been on a date, never been asked out or anything like that.
Okay.
And meeting Cameron made no sense. I also come from a very traditional Chinese cultural home. So usually they're arranged marriages. I actually do have an uncle who's in an arranged marriage. My dad very, very much did his own thing and married my mom, who's 100% Colombian. So he was the first one to kind of do his own thing. And that's why I'm half Chinese, half Colombian, but I was raised very traditionally Chinese. So, you know, with Cameron, it defied all reasoning. And that's what I really do a lot of, you know, how I live my life and how I've been taught. You know, you analyze and you just look at all of the, you look at things from all different ways. And meeting Cameron and telling you that I literally was like, oh, after that, it was just a series of conversations where I was like, he's so fun and he's so present and he thinks I'm funny, like really funny, you know? And our conversations would go on and on about like your favorite cereal and the new quarters that came out or things about when we grew up. And for the first time in my like entire life, I had somebody who was really interested in what I had to say and I was interested in what he had to say. And it was this like perfect friendship. And that's really where I think we started out, was this friendship piece. There wasn't the sexual piece. There wasn't even the romantic piece. It was more this, oh my gosh, you're really here with me in this conversation. Yeah. And then I just was so like addicted to that. And I don't know what other word to use, is just this addiction to him.
We didn't really date, traditionally speaking. It wasn't like I picked her up or we took I took her out somewhere. This was more like, because of our real lives and our work lives and our family lives, we had a lot going on, a ton going on. So any time we got to spend together was what you would call a date, I guess. So it was, you know, after work and having a glass of wine together, but we didn't actually get together and move in or become more of that kind of couple for probably a year?
More than that, I think a year and a half. Was it?
Year and a half, maybe. I mean, because we both lived in other locations and we spent a lot of time with each other, but it was definitely, it was a long time. We did not date. We did not, I mean, right? The one time that I did take her out on a date, I didn't open the door and she's never let me live that down.
I demanded it. I literally said to him, you know, I've never been picked up. I've never been asked out, you know, so I want to go on a date. And so he came to my apartment and we went on a date, and he literally after dinner goes around to his side of the truck, and I'm on my side, and I look through the window and he looks through the window. He's like, what? Thinking that maybe the handle's not working. And I yell through the window, I don't open my own door.
I was like,
oh, right. Yes. I'm supposed to do that. Okay. So I ran back to the other side. You know, chivalry. I didn't know much about
Meanwhile,
that.
I'm like, this relationship is not going to work, you know. My door. We're done. Oh, and he forgot his wallet the first time we went to lunch, too. That was another slick one. See, you know, your listeners should definitely not. That's a good example.
I bet I really did forget my wallet. It works. It does work. To all the listeners, forget your wallet on that first date. We'll see if there's ever a second date again.
Well, and if she's still with you, she's the right one, right?
See, it worked.
That's funny. Well, we haven't talked about those 3 little peeps that we came with. Cam didn't like just fall in love with me, that he fell in love with my kids. So I came with 2 boys. And at that point, they were 11 and 8. And oh my gosh, I mean, at one point, it was like 3 years into it, my older son said, Mom, you know that if you and Cam ever break up, you're going to have to share your visitation, which was already 50-50 with their dad, but you're going to have to share your visitation with Cam, right?
So you're going to have 25%.
Yeah. That's how much they love him.
You know,
and then my Ray, so he had a little girl, so I got my girl.
Oh.
Yes. And Ray was very young at the time, so she doesn't know anything but the most beautiful side of all of the families. So she loves her brothers because they've always been her brothers, and she loves May to be her May. And then she's got a wonderful mother, and she's got May's parents that are great grandparents, and my parents, and then her mom's parents. So there's a big family for her, and she shares everything so well. So the three of them, Reagan and Alex and Nick, when we got together and when we set a course to be married, we kind of came together as what we call the Chance and Five, combining our names, and that's what we are now. And to this day, that's still what we are together.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how did you propose?
Well, this is where I was going to come to that, that it wasn't really a proposal. It started because my son at the time was probably like 12 or 13, and we were all together in one home at that point, and they shared time with their dad, and Reagan shared time with her mom. And Nick came to me one day and he said, Mom, I don't want to keep calling Cam your boyfriend. He's like, that's just dumb. He's like, why don't you guys just get married? And I was like, well, Cam and I came to this with, we are not going to get married again. And that's just things that, the world wants for you, restrictions. And, I'm not going to do that. I'm not changing my name. I finally got my name back to Mai Ling Chan, which actually makes sense. And I said, there's no way I'm taking his last name, which is Svendsen with that silent D in there. And I don't even know how you order a pizza. I was like, we don't need to get married. And, he and I talked about it, and I was like, you know what? Let's just do it. We'll do it in the backyard. We'll have 30 of our closest friends and family, and the boys were my maids of honor, and his daughter was his best man, and it was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. We wrote our own vows, and none of that like till death do we part kind of stuff. But I did put secretly in that he's not allowed to shave. If he shaves, we're done.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there were various things, but this is one of the stories. We have chance and lore, we call it, where there's always stories that we bring up because there's been so many unique moments in the past 13 years that have been worthy of repeating. So we bring it up many times, and the story she just told of me not asking her to marry her, like traditionally speaking, with the ring and everything. Oh, she lets me have it, even though it was a decision made by both of us to do it for the family and for the kids. Right. So don't let her fool you, everybody. she enjoyed that non-traditional way of getting together.
Well, because I always say, well, since you never asked me to marry you.
Yeah, I know, right? Even though you have like 4 rings now. I've made up for it, is what I'm saying.
Based on your experiences, what advice would you give to somebody looking for love?
That's a fantastic question. And I wish that we had like another hour and a half, because that is, for everybody, it's going to be different. And I think that's what we've learned through this. It certainly is what I've learned through my life, is that you can meet people that you really like and that you connect with and that you have fun with. But marriage, the way that we've defined it, is supposed to last forever. Right. And we know that, divorces happen. And we've said this many times, that it's not failure. That just because somebody gets a divorce does not mean that it was a horrible relationship. It just means that it had an end. But we also know now that we've gotten together that there must be somebody for somebody else. If you love yourself, then you have the best chance at finding somebody who will love you as much. And I think that's a really important piece to this. You don't go looking for love to fill that void, to complete whatever you think you are. You complete yourself first. Right. And then you're able to actually go out and find the person that you can share that completeness with. And that's, I wasn't in search for Mai Ling, but I did enough of my own homework, as she likes to say. Do your homework. I did my work throughout the 36 years of my life before I met her. And I think that helped a lot for us to be successful. I knew who I was. I loved who I was. And I'm able to be exactly what I need to be for her to make me happy.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Thank you.
I think that what I've learned from these 2 relationships, everybody listening, I've had 2 now, is the compromise. I don't compromise who I am with Cameron ever. And it was like, I say, it's like standing out in the rain. I was like, I can be me all the time. I don't need to switch back and forth between, somebody who is this way or that way. Like, I get to be me. And I remember when I first started just being more serious, with the relationship with him. And I said to a longtime friend, I said, oh gosh, when he really finds out what I'm really like naggy and picky and goofy and like just all these things, he's not going to like me. And she said, May, do you really think he doesn't know you already? and that is so true. That's just, yep.
And May has been authentic this whole time. This is her. It was her from the beginning. There's been no real changes. And the levity is always there. She's always on this plane that is fun to be with, even in moments where it might not be the greatest day. It's still her.
Yeah, and I'm not fake. I do have down days, but I'm not fake about it. I have another great thing is I still feel this. I'll wake up and he's there and I'm like, oh, he stayed over again. Like he's.
Oh, I love it. It's like
totally true.
Day one.
Totally true.
Oh, I love it. So I always like to ask this question. It's a fun little question. Your marriage sounds solid and fun, but we always have to deal with these little annoyances, right? Because you're two different people, two different worlds getting together. So what are some annoyances that you deal with from each other?
You know what? Honestly, there's not a lot. She's from Jersey and I'm from Phoenix, and that's a big difference, you would think. And yet we have the same likes in music choices, the way that we interact with other people, the things that we expect to do during our day. We want to go places with each other. We enjoy the same things. We're very present. So annoyances, I honestly, the one thing I've told her is that she eats loud. So if that's the one thing, my problem, that's not her problem.
Yeah.
And when I say that, she doesn't, wait, just so that you know, she doesn't chew with her mouth open or anything.
Yeah, I know. Now they've got me like.
No, got all the food coming out.
No, nothing like that. It's just, a little louder than the normal person.
That's funny. Well, again, I came from a one-person relationship, kind of a controlled or very restrictive life type of style, I guess. I mean, it wasn't abusive in any way. It's just the way that we did things was very restrictive. And I remember with Cameron, I said to myself that this is going to be a yes life. So whatever he says, I'm going to say yes to. So it'd be things like, do you want to go bike riding? Yes. Do you want to go hike the, Camelback? Yes. And inside I'm like, no, I don't want to do that,
Yeah.
But I did it and it's just been amazing. The things that we have done, like, do you want to go jet skiing? I had never done that. So yes, cringy, so amazing, so fun. And it just opened up all of these doors for me into, me being a much more open person and more flexible. I definitely needed that. And I think if anybody has compromised more, I think it would be Cameron, because he's so willing to go and do. And I'm like, no, we got these 7 things we have to do first, So maybe we balance each other out on that kind of stuff.
Oh, I love it.
I think so.
Yeah. So on the flip side of that, what are some, what's the 1 or 2 things that you absolutely love about each other?
That's endless. Honestly, love is not a big enough word.
I
right,
know.
May?
I love that.
I could go on and on. Honestly, it's the genuine side of the personality. It's the vibrance that she has, the way that she walks, the soft hair that she has.
I love that.
I literally could go on about everything, and I've written her cards for every holiday that is hers, which she has more than the average person, believe me. But I love so much about her, spiritually, emotionally, and physically, that it is just it's hard to pinpoint.
Yeah.
Wow. And how many years has this been?
13. And we keep saying, like, it's going to end someday, right? You're not going to be so into each other. I don't know. So he'll say to me, I love you. And I say, I adore you. And even that, like, how can I get a big enough word to tell him how much?
Right.
Like, I love how his hair smells. I love to lay on his chest and he talks and I can hear his voice through his chest. I love when I text him something funny and he sends me back an emoji that's funnier. It's like, there's so many things that I love. I introduced him virtually to a group of people that I'm working with, and most of them are millennials. And I said, hopefully at the next event, you'll meet my husband. He's my soulmate. He's my best friend. And I get to wake up with him every day. And this one young gentleman came up to me and he was like, you made me cry.
I know. Even I'm getting teary-eyed listening to that. And I don't want to ignore what you said, Cameron. Love is not a big enough word to describe that. Like, I've never heard anybody say that about anyone.
Well, I don't want to take full credit for that. That actually was a line from a movie, Trains, Planes, and Automobiles.
what would you say to somebody who's been looking for love? Maybe they're about to give up. Maybe they were married to the wrong person. Or maybe it was the right person and it ended, like, what we were talking about earlier. How can we make her feel hopeful? And, from your experiences, what would you say to her if she was in front of you?
Yeah. You know what? I've been told many times that marriage is hard. And I've been in 2 marriages. The first one was hard and it was work. And those are 4-letter words. This marriage is easy. And in so many ways, I talked about compromise before. I just don't compromise the things that are so important to me. And you may think it's not that important, but things like the music. Cameron and I really do we're just people who love music, and we love to listen to the same types of music. And it's not always the same type of music. So it might be like 70s music, and then we'll go into pop music and a little bit of Bon Jovi. But just having that, something that you have a common thread that you both enjoy. And it's not like, oh, he only wants to listen to classic rock or he only wants to listen to Metallica, because then we can't share that. So whatever it is that's important to you, because I love music. I played piano for years, and that's something that I bring to the relationship. So I think like what he's talking about, the know yourself, is so important. Like, make that list of like, I love to walk on the beach. I love to, play with my dog. I mean, these sound like little things, but then you get a guy who, guess what, hates dogs. That's going to really impact you, because you can have a dog and he will tolerate your dog, but that life and that love and those experiences that you have, that connecting, right, that person won't be a part of that man or woman, you know? And I actually am having the joy of seeing a friend of mine where she just moved from a relationship into a different relationship with someone else. And I'm seeing her so happy, and I can see all the things that she's loved to do all these years that she's now able to do. And I'm like, yes, like that's what you needed. And I don't know how to explain it to you when I tell you it's just easy. You don't have to knee-jerk reaction. Oh, I know he doesn't like that, or I know she doesn't like when I do that. You know what I mean? Yeah.
It just works.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like what you said about, knowing what you want and actually literally writing it down. Mm-hmm. I recorded an episode last week that talks exactly like that. Like, you should know what you want. You should write that down. You should know what your goals are. I mean, what are your core values? You should not be able to compromise on some of those things, because if you compromise on some of those things, that's when, like you said, you love dogs and the person doesn't love dogs. Then what do you do? Maybe they are, what are you willing to like give up to be with the person? And then if it's the right person, they will like what you like. Or if they don't know what you like, they will say yes to trying it out, like what you were saying.
Exactly. And I also think that your closest friends, that they know you well and they tell you the truth. So again, I've seen relationships where you have like that feeling like, oh, I just don't know if they're right for each other. Like they're trying too hard,
Right.
But, the person just wants it to work. And so then you put a lot of time into it, and then it's too late to get out of it.
Yeah. No, I like that a lot. Yeah. So did you do any kind of work for yourself? You know how we always say, do some self-care, do some self-reflecting. Had you done any of that before you met your husband?
I had done a lot of Tony Robbins. I loved him. So he's screaming at you, be a good person, be a better person. And that, a lot of that was, I was working on the marriage that I was in, and I kept thinking it was me. It's you can't change the other person. You can only change yourself. And, all these years later, Tony is absolutely right. I look at the boy's dad, and he is the person that he is, and he likes the person that he is. And the things that I wanted and needed, they just weren't that natural part of him.
Yeah.
The goofy stuff that Cam and I do, it would be eye-rolling to the boy's dad. And that's okay. But I know that I drove that poor guy crazy.
Yeah. Well, whatever he does, I'm sure it works for somebody else.
Yeah.
Right. You just have to find that person who appreciates and likes those things.
Yes. And he's remarried now. And it's really cute about Reagan, our daughter. His new wife came with 2 daughters, and the boys now are calling them, their sister. And our daughter Reagan goes, they're really not your sister. I'm your only sister, which is really
I love it.
I do want to say that having children, so we have adult children, my boys are 23 and 20 and Reagan's 13 and a half. It's hard for us to tell them this is what to look for. This is how you find true love. And our daughter said something so beautiful the other day. We were walking back from coffee and she goes back and forth between the two homes. And like Cam said, it's just been her life. It's always been like that. And so her friends have been going through divorces, through the years. And she said, I feel so bad because sometimes it's just so traumatic and drama, and they'll say to her, oh, too bad you have to go to your dad's this weekend. She's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I love going to my dad's, I love May. And she always calls me like her May, like her auntie, her tia, like I'm her May,
Oh,
so
I love it. I love it.
She has a mom, I'm her May. And she said this, and Cam and I just started crying. She said, whenever I talk about you and Dad, I always say that you guys are always so in love and that I hope that someday I find someone like that.
Oh.
And it's such a blessing, Canoe.
What an example you're setting for her.
Well, we can't teach her. We can just show her,
Right. That is so beautiful because she will not settle for anything less than what she knows what true love is by your example.
Yes.
Oh, what a blessing. I love that.
So thank you so much for asking us to share our story with you. We're really honored to be part of this beautiful creation that you're sharing. I've listened to your previous episodes and they're just amazing stories.
Thank you very much for having me be a part of this discussion. I really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun talking about Mai Ling and I and our relationship. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I am genuinely so happy that you made it to the end of this episode. Thank you so much. And please let people know that you are subscribed to this podcast. Show your love and support by sharing this episode on your social media platforms to your friends so that more and more people can listen to these stories, so that you can help me reach my downloads this goal that I have to quadruple the numbers for last year. And let me know what difference these episodes are making in your life. You can tag me, you can tag the podcast. And thank you again. I cannot wait to share the next episode with you.